We have a panel of some really awesome alumni and faculty to talk tonight about like their experiences going abroad after they graduated. And I'm really excited because as a senior, I also don't know what I'm doing in 2 months and looking for some possibilities out there. So these are definitely some of them. So let's get started. We're going to start with introducing the panelists are going to introduce themselves and give you a little preview of what they did abroad. Okay, cool. So Allie, if you want to introduce yourself.
I sure do. Hello, everybody. My name is Allie Miller. I serve as your director for the Klein Global Opportunities Office at Temple University. I've been here for almost 5 years now. And my kind of claim to fame for why I'm on this panel tonight isn't because I'm the lady who sends people abroad. It's because I'm the person who constantly wants to be abroad. And I work in this field because I currently can't be away right now. So I want to make sure everybody gets the heck out of Dodge. So I did the work holiday visa in Australia. So that's the thing I'll be focusing a little bit more on tonight and sharing my experience and expertise. I used to work in Dublin, Ireland, as well as Melbourne, Australia with Northeastern University. I used to be the site director for a first year freshman program where I would spend the fall semester abroad with groups of 86, 113, or 150 first year students spending their first semester abroad. And then before that, I was working at Louisiana State University. I was working at Northern Illinois University, and I got my undergraduate at Michigan State. So I always call the mitten home, and I can point to where I live on my hand. My background is French language and literature. Did not end up using that, but it was a great background for my introduction to love of culture and all things surrounding it. I also focused my studies on adult learning theory and higher education, and most recently got my travel and tourism master's from the STHM school at Temple. So nice to meet you all.
Awesome. Thank you, Allie. Next up, we have Professor Glennon. If you want to introduce yourself, tell us why you're here.
Absolutely. Hello, everybody. Thanks for taking time out of your night. Like Allie, I went away after graduation, and I guess that's the theme for tonight, but I did it a long time after graduation. So I've done it as part of the faculty at Temple University, where I've gone to Dublin twice to help lead the GO program there. I also spent the summer of 2019 in Tokyo. But then more in line with what you guys are thinking, where after I graduated college, I moved from Boston to Los Angeles, which really was like a foreign country for me. So that's part of my experience in terms of travel and just picking up your roots and leaving. And I'm sure the course of the night will emphasize this, but I think everybody should go. The best thing I ever did was to drive cross country from Boston to LA, and it changed the rest of my life. I didn't end up staying, but that's really not the point. It's what stayed with me beyond that. So I look forward to sharing some stories with you guys as the night unfolds.
Awesome, thanks. I'm excited to hear about Ireland and Japan and LA. Cool, Marley, if you want to introduce yourself, you're up next. Oh, I think you're muted.
I always forget to do that. My name is Marley. First of all, thanks for having me. I'm always thrilled to talk about traveling. I'm like Allie, I always want to get the heck out of here. So I graduated from Temple in 2018. I was a comm studies major at Klein, and I had a minor in public relations. Also, while I was at Klein, I studied abroad through Klein Go, and I did the summer internship program in Barcelona, where I worked for a nonprofit. And I was sort of like, okay, traveling is something I want to continue to do. So when I came back to school, I got the international communication concentration. And then once I graduated, I was like, I got to go again. So living abroad was something I always wanted to do. So I spent a year and a half teaching English in Thailand after I graduated. And I loved it. And I came home because of the pandemic. I probably would have stayed longer. But yeah, looking forward to talking more about it with you guys.
Awesome, thanks. Cool. And then last but not least, we have Kimberly. if you want to introduce yourself.
Yeah, hi everybody. I'm Kimberly. I'm from outside of Philly, but I'm currently in London. I studied abroad in fall 2018 with Klein, and I was able to intern while I was in London. I'm currently a politics and communication master's candidate at the London School of Economics. I'm studying media bias for my dissertation. But beyond that, I'm very much into my travel. When I studied abroad with Klein, the first time, it was actually my first time in a plane. So I've come very far from that now. So hopefully when the pandemic eases, I can do a little bit more traveling while I'm here abroad, but happy to share my experiences.
Awesome, thanks. And special thanks to Kimberly because she's in London, so I think it's like, what, midnight there now? So thank you for staying up.
It is 10 o'clock currently.
Oh, not that late. Okay.
The daylight savings in the US and the UK is different. So there's like 4 weeks in the year that it's only a 4-hour difference. So we're in one of those days, which is good.
Okay, well, thank you anyway for staying up to be with us. Awesome. So just a quick overview of some of the things that we're going to talk about tonight, different ways to go abroad after you graduate. So the first way we're going to talk about is teaching abroad. So like both Professor Glennon and Marley said, this can be done a variety of ways, as a higher education professor, as an English teacher right after you graduate, and there's other opportunities as well. So we're going to talk about some of the teaching English abroad opportunities through different programs, a little more in depth in a few slides, but there are like specific programs for certain countries or just generic programs where you could go to take a choice in different countries you can go to teach English. We're also going to talk about work holiday visas like Ali did. So US nationals have the right to work holiday visas in 5 different countries, which is something that I only learned recently, which is really exciting to hear. So we'll hear Ali talk about that. And then also through graduate school and other academic areas, you can kind of go somewhere and live abroad while you're also studying something that you're passionate about, kind of have a more international angle on certain subjects, which is exciting. And then you can also go through, graduate school, academia, or your job, certain research programs like fellowships or Fulbrights. Yeah. So let's start off by talking about teaching abroad. So there are a bunch of different programs to go abroad, and you can teach English in paid positions. You can teach students ages preschool to adults, and there's a lot of different ways to do this. So there are some certifications that you can get. So like TEFL is the Teaching English as a Foreign Language certification. TOEFL is like the Test of English as a Foreign Language. And then the last one is a certification in teaching English to non-English speakers. And you can get these in different programs, or you can go through them, and it's a program that you can get certified through so that you are able to teach English as a foreign language. Many of the programs that you can go to and choose from do offer placement support for you after you complete the certification program. But when you go through, just make sure that the program you choose is accredited. Marley, I'm not sure which program you chose or what went through, but if you want to talk a little bit about that.
Sure, yeah. So I actually found my Teach Abroad opportunity with Greenheart Travel. It's a nonprofit based in Chicago, and they offer a ton of different abroad programs. They offer like Teach Abroad, Intern Abroad, Volunteer Abroad programs, a bunch of different things in all different locations, not just Thailand. So they have like 8 Southeast Asia locations, China, Japan, Europe, South America. So it's a really cool organization, and I chose it because they're all about traveling for change, and I just really like connected with their mission. It's one of the reasons I wanted to go abroad too, is like not only just to travel, but to like really experience a different life that's so different from my own, and also feel like I'm making a difference. So they offered a TESOL certification on site in Thailand. So my first month in Thailand, I was in class with other teachers from the US and the UK. And it was a 4-week program, and we had class every day, and we got to travel in our free time around the city. And after we completed our certification, they had placement services. So we were then placed in a school in Thailand according to our personal preferences.
Great. Where in Thailand were you placed when you taught?
I lived in Thailand. It's about 6 hours north of Bangkok and 4 hours south of like the second biggest city in the north. So it's kind of in the middle of nowhere, honestly. It was a really small town. There were only 10 English speakers, and other than that, there were no other foreigners there. It was like very Thai. Not many people spoke English at all. And yeah, but I loved it.
Awesome.
I'd like to point out, that next slide talks a little bit more about the type of program that Marley did. And this slide here is you can do programs virtually or based in the United States, where you're only taking the classes before you travel or enter a new country. So if you're not sure when you want to start traveling or where you'd like to go, but you want to get that experience first, you can do something like the Language House, Cambridge English, all of these programs. So that hybrid, that virtual, that in-person really gives you flexibility. And then on the next slide is where it talks a little bit more about what Marley did, which is the on-site experience of getting your certification while you're there.
Awesome. Yeah. So like Ali said, there's also, ways to get trained while you're at the location, like Marley. So there's different trainings through specific locations. So JET is for Japan, EPIK is for Korea, and then there's UAE government schools. And then again, multiple locations like Greenheart Travel, GeoVision, CIEE, Teach Abroad. I know there's a professor in the journalism department who went through CIEE, also to Thailand. So there's, a lot of different options. And just for like an example of like what a time frame might be like, there are some programs through CIEE that you can choose to do either for about 6 or 7 months to, 10 to 12 months. So like their Chile program runs from February to January or February to December. And the same with the program in China, August or September to January or July, or, spring to summer or the next. So there's a lot of different options with time lengths and like when you want to go. And some have built-in trainings, but some don't require certification. So yeah, I don't know, Marley, if you want to talk a little bit more about like
there's a
teaching abroad
question in the chat.
Yeah, I saw that.
Okay.
Yeah, so no, I didn't have to learn Thai to teach in Thailand at all. People ask me this all the time, and anywhere you go to teach English, you don't need to know the language in that country to be able to move there and teach there. Most of the time that's the case. And the reason for that is because the TESOL certification prepares you to teach English in a full immersion tactic. So like you're not supposed to use any of their native language in the classroom whatsoever. It's completely like you learn how to teach them so that they're mimicking you, or you use lots of visuals, a lot of like acting out, like you make a total fool of yourself in the classroom. But no, I didn't have to know any Thai. I didn't know any Thai. I personally did learn Thai just because I wanted to. And because my TESOL course was in Thailand, Greenheart offered us like an intro to Thai lessons during our certification course. So we got like a very beginner level, just like conversational things and numbers. But I had another friend with me who was there for 1.5 years. And by the time she left, she couldn't even count to 10. So like she was there for the entire 1.5 years without speaking Thai. So you don't have to worry about that.
Awesome. So another option for, teaching abroad is something like Professor Glennon did, where he went after, like as a faculty member and led some programs and taught at the Temple Japan campus. So Professor Glennon, do you want to talk about that experience and kind of how you got into teaching in Dublin and Japan?
Yeah, it's a fantastic perk of my job was just the opportunity to go and study away. It's so if any of the students are interested in, sort of a longer term career in teaching, know that that's always a fantastic option, especially with larger places like Temple with multiple programs. But there are also all sorts of programs that will take people who are in education and may not be connected to that organization or that school. It's one of the things that translates everywhere is that desire and ability to engage with people and to share lessons and to share stories. And I think, a lot of what Marley was saying about it's language independent. The desire to teach and help people translates regardless of whether you know Japanese or not. So, I spent 10 weeks in Japan and I could count to 3 and I could say turn left, turn right, but I would not let the native language slow you down if you have just that desire to get out and explore and immerse yourself into that culture.
Great. Do we have any other questions in the chat? Sometimes it shows up on my screen and sometimes it doesn't.
I just want to
Okay.
say too, like you'd be surprised how quick you will catch on to a foreign language when you're fully immersed in that way. So if you're nervous about going somewhere like Thailand where you don't speak the language at all and you're like, how am I gonna go shopping and order food and stuff? Like I pretty much have like a beginner to intermediate knowledge of Thai, just from living there a year and a half, and like I could go shopping by myself and have basic conversations. And it's, if you like pay attention to it and you actively try every day, like you will catch on fast. So don't worry about that. And anyone who lives there that can speak English will stick with you and help you out.
Great. Awesome. So next we're gonna move on to talk to working holiday visas a little bit. So like I said before, US nationals can apply for work holiday visas in Australia, Ireland, Singapore, New Zealand, and South Korea. There are also external visa programs to Canada. If you're interested in learning more about the Canada one, we did a little podcast episode a few weeks ago. It's on our Instagram. You can check that out. And then also if you're a dual citizen or have the option to apply for external passports, there's probably even more options for you and more countries that you would be able to go to. So we're just going to talk a little bit about like the details of the 5 different countries and the Canada working visas that you can go to. So to Australia and New Zealand, they're relatively similar. A lot of them have the same kind of requirements and time lengths. So both are 1 year long. The age range is from 18 to 30. So you could, apply for those at any point when you're in that age range. I think if you turn 31 if you apply, but then turn 31, you can still go as long as you applied before you turn 31. Sorry. And then with working in those places, you can't stay in one workplace for more than 6 months. And then the cost for Australia is the proof of at least 5,000 Aussie dollars, and there is an application fee. For New Zealand, it would be the proof of at least 4,200 New Zealand dollars, and then proof that you have a ticket home and you will not stay there. Ali, I'm not sure if you want to talk about Australia while we're on the Australia page or when we get to the end of all the countries.
No, I would say they are very similar, and it used to be that there were like different types of visas. So I was like, these are constantly changing. So I always tell people, look up on the consulate websites to be seeing what those requirements are. And all of the things Emma and I will talk about with the visas is for US nationals. And we say US nationals is anybody with a US passport, because we're assuming that's what most of our audience is. But I will say my Australia work holiday visa cost me around 450 to 500 US dollars to apply to, that I paid for with a credit card while I filled out the form online. And it's similar in New Zealand. It was the best $450 I ever spent.
Awesome. Great. So with the South Korea program, the time length is up to 18 months, so you can stay a little longer there. There's the same age range, 18 to 30, and the eligibility is you must be in higher education, just graduated, and have proof of a certain amount of like money in like Korean dollars and a plane ticket home as well. Singapore is a little shorter, so it's only 6 months, and you can only apply ages 18 to 25. They only accept 2,000 applicants per year, someone who is in a higher education program or has recently graduated. And then with Canada and Ireland, the time length in Canada is dependent on your nationality, so that's something you'd have to look into. It's like 1 to 2 years, and someone who's not currently employed in Canada, willing to work multiple jobs, kind of similar to the Australia and New Zealand. And then Ireland is a year. You must be at least 18 years old to apply. You must have either be enrolled in higher education or just have graduated, and then proof of 1,500 to 3,000 euros, an application fee, and proof of a plane ticket. Cool. So Allie, do you want to talk a little bit about, your decision to apply for a work visa and kind of what you did while you were in Australia?
I had friends who'd done the work holiday visa, and I don't think enough people in the US know about it. So I'm here to spread the good gospel of work holiday visas. And it's called work holiday because you can work, but you don't have to work. You can just be on holiday for an entire year. Instead of being in one place for 90 days, which is the usual limit for a US visitor to another country, you can stay for 12 months. And you can work for 1 month, make some money, travel around, or you can work the whole time. When you're in these places, you are paying local taxes, you get a local bank account, you're getting paid living wages. So when I went to Australia to work, I was getting paid way more than I'd ever gotten paid in the United States before. I was like, this is the best. And then when I got my tax money back, when I left, I was able to live off that for a few months while I searched for new employment. So I've had friends who've worked in Australia and New Zealand. So if anybody wanted to know more about those specifically, I feel like I have some pretty good handle on that. But I was working for Northeastern. I mentioned I did that NUN program. So for the first 6 months, I was still employed by Northeastern, getting paid, to my US company. So it was technically like I was a visitor. And then I ended up getting a job offer from a colleague at Swinburne University of Technology, which is where my program was based. And so I quit my job, much to the chagrin of my boss at the time. And I packed up my apartment in Boston, put it all in storage, and moved out to Australia and worked as an international student advisor. So any new international student, I was one of the people that did their orientation, that supported them through their transition. And I was there for, the rest of my 6 months with fingers crossed that I was going to get sponsored for a visa. Didn't happen, had to fly home. So instead, I just keep telling people about it. But the 3 ways with most of these that you can do this, you can apply through a company that helps you fill out your paperwork and they have a job placement agency. Or you could do something like I did where you're applying for jobs externally and you let them know you have a visa available. Or you can show up, hang out, travel, do whatever. You can get a job as a server. You can do something in the service industry, which is really easy to get work in. So there's a lot of different pathways you can take. You don't have to have an in. I just happened to have an in with folks at a university. But otherwise, I was doing everything as anybody would who moves abroad. I stayed at an Airbnb. I did apartment searching. I had to apply for a bank there. I had to get a mobile phone locally, all those sorts of things. So it was not as scary as one thinks, especially in some of these countries. A lot of them are English speaking, and they're just different enough that it's not too hard to transition over to.
Okay, awesome. Great. Cool. So we are gonna move to graduate school abroad. So grad school abroad is a great way to study, international topics while you're living in different cities or different countries. you can take classes in English, or you can pursue a degree at a non-English speaking country for a language intensive experience if you're someone who knows another language and wants to study that further. And some countries also offer free college tuition. You'll probably still have fees, you'll probably still have to pay for housing. But a lot of countries, even if they have free tuition, it's usually more affordable than the US, which is an added bonus. Oh no. Okay, let's talk about how do you find the program that's right for you. So, research what you want to kind of focus on, and then you can look up international programs for that subject. You can go off of locations you might want to be. Kimberly, how did you kind of find the program that you are in now and wanted to go to school for?
So I applied to a lot of programs in the UK. That was kind of my plan, was to go to the UK. And I had this plan before I even studied abroad the first time. But I actually went through and just researched. Originally, I wanted to do a journalism master's, but I was a political science and journalism double major, so I had an interest in both. So I kind of just looked at programs kind of relating to both. Also, I looked at rankings, which rankings can be misleading, but they can also be really useful in finding schools that have a lot of different program varieties. So I applied to some schools in London, some schools other places in the UK. So it kind of, you can narrow it down based on where you want to go, but you can also narrow it down kind of based on what program you want to do. Like certain schools will have a really great journalism program or whatever, and then you can pinpoint where you want to apply.
Awesome. So there's also, scholarships available for people who are studying internationally for grad school. So there's different websites where you can find external scholarships to apply for grad school. And then there's also, research if there's any in-house scholarships in the graduate school of your choice. And once you apply and things like that. So just some general information, they're generally 1 year long, and you're working you're there as a full-time student. Sometimes you'll be eligible to work part-time as a graduate student, but obviously this doesn't automatically lead to being able to work in that country after graduation. So Kimberly, I'm assuming you're a full-time student, and how long is your program? Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yeah, so I'm a full-time student. So my program is a year-long straight through, which is very different than a lot of US programs, which are 2 years long. And the year-long programs are great. Not only is the UK generally cheaper for higher education, but since you're only paying for 1 year of tuition instead of 2, it even lowers the cost even more. But yeah, I'm a full-time student. Part-time is mostly people who are UK or EU residents for in the UK. That's just kind of how it works. And then you can work, I'm going to go off the other 2 points. You can work part-time. It is a little bit limiting as a graduate student doing a full year program, because when you're not in term time is only about 2 months of the entire year that you can work full-time. So doing internships is a little bit difficult, so be aware of that. But yeah, so that's
Awesome.
kind of, and as well, the UK specifically has started a new graduate scheme where you can get an extension to your student visa for 2 years post-graduation without needing a job sponsor. You can work any job you like, and then switch into a normal work visa if you decide to stay, which is great. And it doesn't actually kick in until January. So I can, my new visa wouldn't start until January 2022. So I'll actually get 2 years and 4 months added to my visa to work wherever I want before I switch.
That's amazing.
That's so exciting.
Yeah, so that's definitely something to keep in mind. And that applies to anyone from any country doing graduate work. As long as you do not fail your course and you do not break a law, you will be accepted into this program. So that's something to keep in mind.
Awesome. We have some questions in the chat that we can talk about now. Amanda asked if it was difficult to transfer information from Temple to a school in London, and then also how early did you begin to apply for schools?
So to answer the first question, transferring information is not that difficult. The applications are quite straightforward. Unlike the US graduate school programs, you generally do not need tests. So, you don't have to take any of the annoying graduate school exams. Those are not a thing in the UK. The application is literally just having your transcript emailed, doing the general application, writing a personal statement, and sending a CV, which if you're from the US might be a little bit of an adjustment because you're used to doing a resume, but it's quite simple to transfer your information over. There's a lot of information online to do that. And in terms of how early did I begin to apply? So I graduated May 2020, and I started applying to schools in January 2020. So it was a very small time frame. A lot of graduate schools here don't start until October. So you can apply as an international student quite late, as long as you have enough time to get your visa and everything sorted. So I have friends in my program that didn't actually apply to LSC until like April, May time, and they still were able to go into my program. So it really kind of just depends. Like I interviewed for a place at Goldsmiths and a couple other schools in their journalism program, and they weren't conducting interviews on places until the end of April. So that is quite common. Like a lot of students in the UK decide to do their master's when they're right when they're finishing up their course. And so it is quite normal to wait. You can apply early. The applications open in October, the year before. So you can apply as early as you want. But if you're a senior right now and you're like, oh, maybe I want to do a master's, you could still apply right now.
Awesome. Someone has their hand up. I'm sorry, I can't see your name because I'm sharing my screen, but you can ask your question.
It's me. I just didn't feel like typing it in the chat anymore. Hi, everybody. Thank you so much for speaking to us. Like all this information is like super cool. I was literally just talking to acting professors for some advice about after graduating, like living abroad or like working abroad or studying abroad. So like, this is like, but this could be for everybody in general. But like also Kimberly, I think this might be a little bit closer to your academics because I'm a MSP student right now, but I'm also a double major and I'm majoring in political science. So I was wondering, like, when you were looking at schools, do you think that they have better programs for students that are like inclined, like with media studies or like political science, or like, did you have any other countries that like had good programs for that as well? I mean, I'll do research for other countries, but like just in your, yeah.
Yeah, no. So for me personally, if you want to do something that kind of specializes in media and politics, a lot of those programs don't really exist in the US unless you do a double master's. So that is something to keep in mind. But in the UK, there are a couple programs. I know Royal Holloway has one that is like politics and comms. I think Leeds has a political communication program. LSC has their politics and comm program, which is, there's about 60 of us in the program this year. So it's one of their higher enrollment programs. But as well, there's a lot of schools and they have different accreditations, but there's a lot of schools that have different media programs depending on kind of what you want to do, whether you want to do journalism or production. And a lot of them have programs that are more centered towards people who want to stay in the UK, and then also international programs. So that is something to keep in mind. Like a lot of places will have an international journalism program and then a regular journalism program. So it kind of depends on where you want to apply your skills. Some of the programs will give industry standard qualifications for the UK. So if you decide you want to stay, you would have your journalism diploma or media diploma for hiring purposes. So that's also something to look into. But in terms of having the two connect, it's pretty unique. Like not a lot of programs do it. So that is something to keep in mind. Also, if you're looking into politics, some public policy programs do media courses. So that's something to keep in mind if you're interested in public policy. There's a couple programs like King's where you can take 1 or 2 media courses in addition like as your electives in your public policy or politics course. So hopefully that was helpful.
Thank you.
Awesome. So yeah, so this slide is kind of talking about media and communication journalism programs abroad that are out there. I chose two of the universities that we send undergraduates to as Klein Go. So Dublin City University has some, programs in, they also have like a master's in political communication. They have a lot of different journalism and media programs out there, as well as Goldsmiths. So, there are options to kind of combine certain, like Kimberly said, like to combine certain ideas with media and journalism, which is, not something I've, in my research, seen that often in US graduate school. So it is something awesome to keep in mind. There's also some more resources like American universities abroad. This is private American universities that are located outside of the US. So they have locations in places like Madrid, Paris, Switzerland, other places. And then the Association of International Regional Representatives for North America. And they have a lot of resources about international education as well. Cool. So briefly, just, some other options to go abroad or, get out of Philadelphia or the immediate area once you graduate. There's volunteer opportunities in nonprofit volunteers, but also with the Peace Corps, which is the International Volunteer Corps, or AmeriCorps, which is the national one. You can work for a company with global offices, something like Allie did when she was working and was able to go abroad through her workplace, or like Professor Glennon, got to go do those opportunities through their offices and their work. And you can always ask about transferring to another office, or possibly being able to visit those offices, get those opportunities to travel. You can also move across the country for your career. I know Professor Glennon did that. Do you want to talk a little bit about, what was your decision when you moved to LA and kind of why you wanted to go there? I know that's a destination a lot of media students do, think about.
Absolutely. And it was the only place that I could do what I wanted to do. So I'm a writer by training and birth, I guess. So I wanted to write television, and the only place that was writing television on a regular basis was LA. So I think the important lesson from my experience is I didn't necessarily go right away after graduation. So, I had to plan, I had to save a lot of money, because I knew it wasn't moving for a job per se. I was moving for the chance at work. So, screenwriting is very different than other jobs where you have to develop a body of work and then have someone find interest in you and then get hired. So I spent probably about 18 months after graduation just working every waking moment that I wasn't writing, and saved and saved and saved, and sort of played that long game and played chess. So when I got to LA, I could do the necessary work of writing and hustling and pounding those pavements. So, so I think, if there's a piece of advice I can give everyone here is, think about the plan and how you're going to get there. So maybe it is maybe studying a little bit harder or grinding away a little bit more just before you get out and do some of these other programs. The importance of hard work isn't necessarily great grades. It's about creating opportunity. And when you're a candidate versus somebody else, the answer is yes. So it's one way to think about that in terms of, the final piece of effort, or that piece of the puzzle that you're trying to fight through. Or even if you're working in a company that does send people abroad, you have to make yourself the most valuable employee, so that when you say, can I go here? They say, absolutely, we want to send you. You're going to be a great person and a great representative. So, it's about that long game. It's about identifying where in the world has that opportunity that you're interested in. And then also, keep this in the back of your minds. You don't have to stay where you go. But the impact stays with you. So I lived in LA for about 3 years. It was a fantastic experience, but I'm also thrilled to be back here, altered by what happened to me, when I lived out there. So I think, don't tell your parents, they'll probably cry. I think the best thing you guys can do is pack up and move somewhere after school. It's the best time to do it. You have no roots. If you can swing it, great, go do it right away. If you can't swing it financially right away, get that third job and sleep on someone's sofa, keep your overhead low, save up, because the more flexibility you have when you do go somewhere, the better the experience can be. Another piece of advice I got when I was moving to LA, one of my friends said, don't get a day job that's going to make you tired, because then I wouldn't be able to write when I had to write, and I wouldn't be able to travel when I wanted to travel. So I got the most boring day job I could. I worked in a bank reading mortgages to make sure that they were accurate. And I never drank coffee until I got that job, because it was the most boring job ever. But, I'm like, oh, I'm falling, but, I was fresh to travel when I wanted to travel. So if I wanted to go to Palm Springs or Mexico or Venezuela, I was ready. And when I had to do my other job, when I had to do my writing job, I was able to do that too. So, play that long game, put yourself in the best position to take advantage of opportunities. Sometimes that means grades. Sometimes that means a little extra money in your bank account, and go, and don't be afraid to go, because it only gets harder.
Great. Yeah, and the last option I just have on this is, you can always keep some time for like personal travel. Maybe you already have a job set up after graduation, but you have a few weeks in between. You can take that time to travel. I know obviously right now it's a little hard, but there are places you can maybe road trip to in the US. Also great options. And then last, just some additional resources. Temple does have a Fulbright Development and Fellowship Advising Office. I know we didn't really touch on those kinds of programs, but they would be your best bet to go to and learn about different fellowships and Fulbright opportunities that you can apply for. And then also the Temple Career Center. I'm sure they will be able to help you out a little bit. And then you can always stop in and say hi to us at Klein Go. I don't know much about a lot of the topics, but I'm willing to do research. I'm also graduating in a month and don't know what I'm going to do. So if you're interested in going abroad after you graduate, you can come say hi in the room and we can talk through different options. Cool. So last slide, is there any questions anyone has? You can unmute yourself, raise your hand, type in the chat, and we can go from there.
Can I add a random thing?
Yes.
Because I just thought about this when we were talking about being able to afford doing it. I would note that a lot of UK schools, especially if you're American, have scholarships specifically for American students, which I had the privilege of getting some of these. And it's literally just, if you meet a certain GPA requirement and you apply for just in general, you will get the scholarships. And some of them are up to half tuition. So that is something to note if you're not sure even if you can afford postgraduate education in the UK, and you don't think you qualify for something like a Fulbright or something like that. Those are options for you, and they can knock your postgrad all the way down to like £7,000 and room and board for the year, which is quite good if you're getting your master's. So that is something to note.
Awesome. Thank you, Kimberly. We have a few questions in the chat. So Kristen asked, how would you recommend juniors prepare for this experience when they graduate? I guess that's open to anyone who wants to take a stab at that.
I would say take advantage of like any travel opportunity. If you've never traveled before, like could you go on a short vacation or something and see if it's something that you're interested in? For me, I felt like my internship abroad in Barcelona for 2 months really prepared me for living abroad for a year, and I wasn't sure, before that experience in Barcelona if it was something I'd ever be able to do. And then spending 2 months in Barcelona, I was like, wow, I could stay here for a much longer time. So that was sort of confirmation for me. And it's not too late, you know, to like apply for something your senior year or a summer internship with Klein Go this summer, or even just like if you want to do like a 1 week vacation somewhere and just get a feel for it. But I really think that anyone can do it. And once you're in the situation, if you're open-minded enough, like you'll realize it's not as scary as you thought.
Definitely. I have a question for Marley. I guess what was like the time frame of when you applied and then when you actually went to Thailand, and what ages were you teaching while you were there?
Sure. I applied in about April of 2018, like a month before I graduated. And then I left in late September. But I actually had a few friends that I met there who applied in like July or August and left in late September. So it's really something like if you're feeling ambitious and impulsive and want to make a last minute decision to go teach abroad, you can with some organizations. The application deadline's usually like a month or two before departure. So yeah, I had this whole summer to prepare, and like Joe said, I got that extra job. I remember I like busted my butt that summer waitressing in Center City. I worked like 70-hour weeks. I just picked up every double shift. I was like, I'll take it. So I just thought of like all the traveling I could do if I just saved up some money. And I taught high school. I wanted to teach kindergarten and like early education because I love little kids. But it's just kind of what they had available in like I wanted a small town. That was my placement preference, but they couldn't match like both. So they're like, either you teach high school in like a small town or early education in like a big city. And I was like, okay, I'll take high school. And I loved it. If I could do it all over again, I would choose high school every time. It was so much fun.
Awesome. Carrie asked for working holiday visas. Was it a long application process, Allie?
It was not. It was almost alarmingly easy. It is all digital, and you do have to have a valid passport, like that's the one thing you need to make sure that you have in advance. You can't do it and then apply for a passport. They need that information. But I took maybe an hour or so to get everything finished online. And I will say I did get confirmation 6 hours later from the Australian government via email that said, Alexandra, welcome to Australia. You're welcome to come, and you can't have a job for more than 6 months at a time. And I was like, sold. So it was a fairly simple process. I will say there are longer waiting terms right now because Emma and I were doing some research, and it does have a longer wait process because offices are operating a little bit slower these days due to the pandemic. So I'd say right now it's going to be not 6 hours. It might be up to 90 days that it takes. But from the day I got the visa, I had a year to depart to that country. And so I did it when I applied when I was 28. I left when I was 29, or I left when I was 30, I think. And then I turned 31 the day I flew home. So I will say these are time sensitive a little bit more so, but I do echo Professor Glennon's like sentiment, like you don't have to do it all right away, because it's nice that some of these visas have longer terms. Like you can have a job for a few years. I'd worked 4 years in Louisiana. I'd worked many years in other places. So it wasn't that I had to go immediately after graduation. It was nice to get some other like life experience and really prepare myself for being across the globe.
Awesome. Do we have any more questions from anyone? Okay, I'm going to share the fun little, I'm going to keep sharing my screen, and we're going to spin the fun little wheel to see who gets the bag of Klein Go swag. But if you have any more questions, once I stop sharing my screen, feel free to ask them again. So, cool. Let's see if this works. I have a million tabs open. Sorry, everyone. Okay, here we go. And Gabby warned me that there was music that played, so it might be loud.
Yay, Kristen. Woo, you won.
No, she just popped out a few minutes early, but we'll say it was legit because she was here and asked questions the whole time. Oh, Kristen, you're there.
She's
I didn't
right
see your
there.
name on my list. I'm sorry. I was looking at the like chat list. You did it. All right. I'll email you.
Okay. Awesome.
Yay.
Well, if no one has any more questions, thank you all so much for joining us. And thank you, Ali, Kimberly, Professor Glennon, and Marley for joining us and being in our panel. It was awesome to hear from all of you. And I loved learning about what you did and seeing more options of how I can also go abroad in a few months, hopefully, if it's safe. So yeah, thank you all so much and have a good rest of your Thursday night.
Bye. Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you all.